Krishna Krishna Krishna.
Hare Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances. All goes Sri Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj. Yeah, Swapna Mataji, whenever you're ready, you can start, Mataji.
Okay, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All goes to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naran Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Nashtaprayeshu Abhatreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Today we will continue reading from 4th Canto, chapter 23, entitled Maharaja Prithu's Going Back Home, from text 1. Text 1 and 1 to 3. At the last stage of his life, when Maharaja Prithu saw himself getting old, that great soul, who was the king of the world, divided whatever opulence he had accumulated amongst all kinds of living entities, moving and non-moving. He arranged pensions for everyone according to religious principles, and after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in complete coordination with him, he dedicated his sons onto the earth, which was considered to be his daughter. Then Maharaja Prithu left the presence of his citizens, who were almost lamenting and crying from feeling separation from the king, and went to the forest alone with his wife to perform austerities. Text 4. After retiring from family life, Maharaja Prithu strictly followed the regulations of retired life and underwent severe austerities in the forest. He engaged in these activities as seriously as he had formerly engaged in leading the government and conquering everyone. In the Tapovana, Maharaja Prithu sometimes ate the trunks and roots of trees, sometimes he ate fruit and dried leaves, and for some weeks he drank only water. Finally, he lived simply by breathing air. Text 6. Following the principles of forest living and the footsteps of the great sages and munis, Prithu Maharaja accepted 5 kinds of heating processes during the summer season, exposed himself to torrents of rain in the rainy season, and in the winter stood in water up to his neck. He also used to simply lie down on the floor to sleep. Text 7. Maharaja Prithu underwent all these severe austerities in order to control his words and his senses, to refrain from discharging his semen, and to control the life air within his body. All this he did for the satisfaction of Krishna. He had no other purpose. Text 8. By thus practicing severe austerities, Maharaja Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely free of all desires of fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control his mind and senses, and by such control, he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. Text 9. Thus, the best among human beings, Maharaja Prithu followed that path of spiritual advancement which was advised by Sanat Kumara. That is to say, he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. Text 10. Maharaja Prithu thus engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations strictly according to principles 24 hours daily. Thus, his love and devotion unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, developed and became unflinching and fixed. Text 11. By regularly discharging devotional service, Prithu Maharaja became transcendental in mind and could therefore constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. Because of this, he became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he would transcend all doubt. Thus, he was freed from the clutches of false ego and the material conception of life. Text 12. When he became completely free from the conception of bodily life, Maharaja Prithu realized Lord Krishna sitting in everyone's heart as the Paramatma. Being thus able to get all instructions from him, he gave up all the other practices of yoga and gnana. He was not even interested in the perfection of the yoga and gnana systems, for he thoroughly realized that devotional service to Krishna is the ultimate goal of life, and that unless the yogis and gnanis become attracted to Krishna Katha, narrations about Krishna, their illusions concerning existence can never be dispelled. Text 13. In due course of time, when Maharaja Prithu was to give up his body, he fixed his mind firmly upon the lotus feet of Krishna, and thus, completely situated on the Brahmabhuta platform, he gave up the material body. Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mate. Hare Krishna. Yeah, whenever you're ready, you can start, Mate. Achyuta.
Sure, Prabhu. Thank you so much. Am I audible, Prabhu?
Yes, Mate.
ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुन्मिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितमेन भूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम राम हरे। Okay. So sorry, I'm just trying to share my screen here. Okay. All right. So we saw in the previous, this is a new chapter that we are starting, chapter 23. In the previous chapter, we saw how Prithu Maharaj, how he followed the instructions that he received from the 4 Kumaras, and how he perfectly managed the kingdom, how he ruled the kingdom very nicely. And we also, again, the one thing that struck me from the previous chapter was like he never used his opulence for sense gratification. So he, that was a big learning for me. He being conscious on using our opulences and our resources for not for sense gratification, but to always use it for the service of the Lord. In this chapter, the first verse or the first first 3 verses are combined together. So this verse says that at the last stage of his life, when Prithu Maharaj saw himself getting old, and I was thinking, what does it mean? Like, how must have Prithu Maharaj saw himself getting old? Like, the symptoms of old age are like normally that we know of are, graying of hair, in this day and age, our eyesight is, we get spectacles, the eyesight weakens, we feel less energetic, we probably see some wrinkles and things like that, but I guess in this age of Kali Yuga, we see these symptoms pretty early in our lives. I think I remember I personally got my glasses when I was like 13 or 14, somewhere around that time. I don't feel energetic all the time. So yeah, I mean, we see, and like I've seen some of my very close friends actually pass away very early. So yeah, so it's very right now, like, we can't really, we don't have, so Maharaj Prithu was he ruled during the Satya Yuga, and Satya Yuga, we didn't see the symptoms of old age early in life. So he could wait until he became old and then move on to the next phase, which was Vanaprastha. That's what he did. But today, in this day and age, we cannot, we don't have that luxury to live. One is we don't have that much, that long of life to wait. and then practice devotional service and perfect our lives and go back home, back to Godhead. So Maharaj Prithu, he enters Vanaprastha life, and it is said that he enters Vanaprastha life. Prabhupada mentions in the purport that he enters Vanaprastha life with his wife Archi, and he practices a lot of austerities and penances in the forest. Prabhupada says that Vanaprastha life, so husband and wife are considered as one unit, and they perform the austerities together. And that is what Prithu Maharaj also did. So in these verses, we will see how exactly he performed austerities, how did he purify himself, and how did he quit his body. So Prabhupada mentions that after executing the orders of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and settling the affairs of the world, Prithu Maharaj was ready to retire. He had been an exemplary in his governmental administration, and now he was to become exemplary in his retirement. So the way that he did was he divided all his property and amongst his children and appointed them to rule the world, and then he went to the forest with his wife Archi. So that's and Prabhupada mentioned that it appears that in those days there were many tapovans or forests that were meant especially for retirement and practices of austerities. So just like today, we have different schools to get education that we go to, so like that, there were in the Satya Yuga, there were forests that were especially meant for retirement and retirement, basically, to perform austerities. And it was compulsory for everybody to go to Tapovan. So this Tapovan, it is actually meant to live a very, very austere life that we will see in the next few verses. Prithu Maharaj, he strictly followed all the regulations, the rules that were required to in the Vanaprastha stage of life, and he underwent a lot of severe austerities. And all this he did to control the mind and the senses. So this is so all of these austerities that we will see that Prithu Maharaj was basically to control the mind and the senses. So the main goal of Vanaprastha life is to perform austerity. So that is what is the main reason to enter Vanaprastha stage of life. And the regulative principles in which the regulative principles are like strictly followed in this Vanaprastha stage, and thus by following the exemplary character of so just by following Prithu Maharaj, one can become perfect in all aspects of life, and then finally we can give up our bodies and liberate ourselves. So the way that he did austerities was Maharaj Prithu, let's start with, the verse starts with eating, what he ate in the forest. So Prabhupada says that Maharaj Prithu ate, he did not eat any cooked food. So basically he ate the trunks of and roots of the trees. I don't know how that is possible to do without cooking, but he ate the trunks and roots of the trees. Sometimes he ate fruits and dried leaves, and sometimes he drank only water. I was listening to one lecture, and I think it was Bhurishana Prabhu's lecture, and he mentioned, he was basically questioning. He was like, "Why do you think he ate only dried leaves?" because that was the only thing that was available sometimes. Sometimes nothing else was available. So there were only like leaves fallen from the trees that were available. So he just ate that. And sometimes if he didn't even find that, then he simply lived by breathing air. So we cannot even imagine, I know Pandav Nirjala Ekadashi is coming up this month, and I think it's next Monday. And I know for some of us, it's going to be very difficult to be without water. In this country it is okay, but in India it's very, very hot right now. So it's going to be very austere for devotees. And this is only, we're talking like 24 hours or 36 hours of fasting. But Prithu Maharaj did this like every single day. He did these austerities. And the purpose of doing these austerities is basically to control our mind and senses. So Prabhupada says that to live in the forest is to live in the mode of complete goodness, whereas to live in the city is to live in the mode of passion, and to live in a brothel or drinking house is to live in the mode of ignorance. And but to live in the temple is to live in Vaikuntha, which is transcendental. So again, we have to. That doesn't mean that we have to leave our homes and go and live in the temple, but or the forest, but to make our ashram or whichever ashram we are in a way which is very conducive to practice Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada wanted every householder to make their homes as temples. So have a temple in home at their place at home, and practice Krishna consciousness at home. So, and then Prabhupada says that we should follow in the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We can follow in the footsteps of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur by living in the temple, which is transcendental to residence in a forest, and to vow to accept only Krishna Prasad and nothing else. So basically, living in the temple means living at home, which is converted into a temple. And for us, austerities of eating is basically only eating Krishna Prasad and nothing else, and following the regulative principles and chanting 16 rounds daily. In this way, our spiritual life, one's spiritual life will never be disturbed. So very practical. So our contemporary acharyas are very, very practical in the sense that they've given us a very practical solution to follow the previous acharyas, or these exemplary examples like Prithu Maharaj, and also at the same time also attain the same results as they did. So it's not that we are not going to achieve what Prithu Maharaj achieved, but even by staying in our household and practicing these simple processes, the simple things, we can achieve what they also achieved. And then Prithu Maharaj also performed austerities in the sense that also performed bodily austerities. So he accepted in the heat of the summer, he accepted 5 kinds of heating processes, exposed himself to torrents of rain in the rainy season, and in the winter stood in water up to his neck. And he would also sleep on the floor. So these are some of the austerities that are performed by the Gyanis and Yogis who don't accept the process of devotion service. So they undergo these kind of severe austerities, like what is mentioned. They expose themselves to rain, and in the heat in the summer they expose themselves to fire. They sit within a circle of fire, perform austerities that way. So this is the purpose purpose of all of this is to engage the mind and the senses, and to control the mind and the senses. So Prithu Maharaj also underwent all of these severe austerities to control his words and his senses, and to refrain from discharging his semen to control the life air within the body. And the goal of Prithu Maharaj was to do this for the satisfaction of Krishna. In the Kali Yuga, however, in the Brihanaradiya Purana, it is said that in order to be recognized by Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one should chant the holy name of the Lord continuously, 24 hours a day. So, one must accept either the severe, either of this, like either the severe method of austerity that is described above to become purified, or to take to the process of devotional service, that is for pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the easier path is devotional service, which is very very easy to perform, and it's at the same time it is also susukham. That means it is joyfully performed. Susukham kartum avyayam. And in this verse, in verse number 7, Prabhupada mentioned that significance in this verse are the words Ariri Radhishum Krishnam Acharat Tapa Uttamam. Maharaj Prithu underwent severe types of austerities for the express purpose of worshipping Krishna. So basically, whatever helps, whatever tools that help in controlling our mind and the senses, that were used basically by Prithu Maharaj to execution service. So Prabhupada also says that we should therefore not be discouraged just because we cannot go to the forest and practice severe austerities. Our life is very short, because we don't even live for like 100 years. Our life is very short, so we must strictly adhere to whatever life that we have. We must adhere to the principles laid down by the previous acharyas and practice Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada is giving us some hope that we can achieve the similar results that Prithu Maharaj achieved, and just by practicing devotional service. Verse 8 will be our verse for today for reading, if we all have time. But it's a very, very nice purport given by Prabhupada, and I'll read some. The verse says, by practicing severe austerities, Maharaj Prithu gradually became steadfast in spiritual life and completely freed from all desires for fruitive activities. He also practiced breathing exercises to control the mind and the senses. And by such control, he became completely free from all desires for fruitive activity. So this is the control of the breathing exercises to control the mind and the senses is called pranayam. So the purpose of pranayam or mystic yoga is to stop the mind and the senses from engaging in fruitive activities. I mean, of course, it's in one word it says it says stop the mind and senses, but but what it practically how we can do it is we cannot stop our engagement in activities. So all we can do is we can divert or we can replace our existing activities and replace it with Krishna conscious activities. I remember a few years or many years ago, actually, I was addicted to a particular show, a TV show, and I used to watch it like every single day. And I was not able to overcome that habit of watching that show every day. But I was trying to pray. It helped for a little bit, but it didn't completely, I didn't really completely get rid of my desire to watch that show. So in one particular Kartik, I basically just swapped that show to watch something else, like a devotional thing. So I was watching videos or lectures And I've like some of the speakers are very entertaining, so I was kind of like, kind of watching them. I started off watching them, and basically that's how I got rid of that. So just by swapping that activity or that desire to watch a particular show, it helped me personally to overcome that desire to watch TV. So that's so we cannot like completely stop. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say, that it's very difficult to, if we completely stop our mind and senses, it's just impossible to sustain that. And the best way is to engage the mind and senses in Krishna conscious activities. So it's engaged, and at the same time we get the spiritual benefit as well. Prabhupada says that the minds of those who are attached to fruitive activities are always filled with unclean desires. Fruitive activities are symptomatic of our polluted desire to dominate material nature. So this addiction of engaging in fruitive activities it comes from their polluted desires. So as long as we have polluted desires, we will continue this accepting bodies one after the other. So that's what Prabhupada says. And then Prabhupada says that Prithu Maharaj's activities took place in Satya Yoga, but in this age, this practice of yoga is misunderstood by fallen souls who are not capable of practicing anything. So, Kalo Shudra Sambhava. As far as pranayama is concerned, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord and dancing in the ecstasy are also considered pranayama. That's what is mentioned. So basically for us, pranayama, we can just chant and dance. The actual aim is to strengthen the mind and the senses in order to engage them in devotion service. So, that desire we will, once the mind and the senses are stopped, we won't even have that desire to engage them in something else. And this is achieved simply in this age by chanting the holy name of the Lord. In text 9, Prithu Maharaj followed the path of spiritual advancement, which was advised to him by Sanat Kumar. So basically he performed all these austerities, and then he worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So that has always been his goal, to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this performing austerities was just a means to achieve that devotional practice. The devotion service is never considered a material activity, since he is acting on the Brahma Bhuta platform. So this is from Bhagavad Gita, Brahma Bhuta platform, in which a devotee, so the Brahma Bhuta platform is in which a devotee is always engaged in the devotion service of the Lord. So Brahma Bhuta stage, if a devotee practices devotion service, then that means that he is on the Brahma Bhuta stage, he or she. If the devotee adheres strictly to the orders of the spiritual master and follows the full rules and regulations, along with chanting Hare Krishna Mahamantra, one is already in the Brahma Bhuta stage. In verse number 10, Prithu Maharaj engaged completely in what says Prithu Maharaj engaged completely in devotional service, executing the rules and regulations, and thus he developed love for Krishna, and his mind became fixed. So this is basically described by Rupa Goswami in his verse, in the famous verse Anyabhilasha Shunyam, which means that one who is not inspired by material desires, who is not contaminated by the processes of fruitive activity and empiric speculation, and fully engages in devotional service, in favorable devotional service. This is pure. This is called pure devotional service. So and then this is what he achieved. So after practicing austerities and penances and devotional service, his mind became transcendental and he could constantly think of the lotus feet of the Lord. He became completely detached and attained perfect knowledge by which he could transcend all doubts. So Prabhupada in the purport that just like, when a queen comes, all the different maid servants and, she comes with many followers as well. So the maid servants of devotion service are material opulence, liberation, and mystic powers. These are very, like karmis are like, for example, very attached to material enjoyment, and that's why they perform material activities. Gyanis are very, they want to be free from the material clutches, and yogis are very fond of attaining the 8 kinds of mystic perfection. But if one attains if one attains pure devotion service, just like pure devotion service is like the queen. So so these things are all part and parcels of pure devotion, like they're followers of pure devotion service. So if somebody attains pure devotion service, they also attain all these opulences from fruitive activities, empiric speculation, and mystic yoga practices. So at present, our minds and bodies are all material. But if we practice devotional service, we can spiritualize this. We can attain. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he gives example of a fire of devotional service. So the fire of devotional service should be so strong that the devotee should not need to practice, a devotee does not need to practice anything separately to attain the perfect knowledge or detachment from material attractions. So again, like, all these examples like Prithu Maharaj, Dhruv Maharaj, all these examples in the Bhagavatam, they're all eternally pure devotees of the Lord. But and Prithu Maharaj specifically, he is a Shaktavesh avatar of the Lord. So but he did this just for people in general, for us to set an example. And then in verse 12, it mentions how he gave up. He said 12 and 13 basically talks about how he gave up his gross and subtle bodies. So he after he attained the stage of devotion, Maharaj Prithu became uninterested in practice of jnana and yoga and abandoned them. So he started to only practice devotion service, and then he fixed his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he gave up his life. So King Kulashekar, we have this famous verse, Krishna Tvadiya Pada Pankaja Panjarantam. King Kulashekar Maharaj, he says that he wants to give up this body when he is in a healthy state, and he prayed to Krishna to let him die immediately when he was in the healthy state and when his mind was fixed, because at the time of death it is very difficult to chant the name of the Lord, because it's very because of all the mucus and cough that chokes the throat. It's very difficult to even chant the name, what to think about. And body is also in a lot of pain at the time of death, so it is very difficult to think of the Lord. But so that's why Kulashekar Maharaj says that he wants to give up his body when the body is strong and when the mind is also strong. I have one quick thing here. Just to give you a brief overview. So of what we talked about today. So basically, the theme of these verses are King Prithu's renunciation, his meditation and detachment, and devotional service, and Krishna conscious departure. This is a simple breakdown. So from verses 1 to 3, Prithu Maharaj goes to the forest along with his wife Archie. From verses 4 to 8, Prithu's austerities, we looked at that. Verses 9 to 10 talk about Prithu's worship, how Prithu Maharaj worshipped the Lord through Adhyatma Yoga. 11 and 12 verses talk about how he destroyed his subtle body by devotion service. And 13 to 18, I mean, we'll see that tomorrow, some of the verses, but yeah, he talks about how he gives up his gross body. I just want to, we don't really have time to go through everything, but I just want to give some practical application, how we can apply in terms of practical methods for remembrance. So A, B, C, D, E of devotional service. A is association, B is reading of scriptures, C is chanting, and D for dhambas, and DT worship. So if you practice this, every single day, we will be able to fix our minds on Krishna. Some of the Prabhupada's quotes are, Prabhupada mentions that if you always chant Hare Krishna, you will always remember Krishna. And if you always remember Krishna, your life will be perfect. And then every day we should read Srimad Bhagavatam, because simply by hearing about Krishna, we will remember him. And then Prabhupada says to a letter to Satsvarupa Maharaj, stay always in the association of devotees, chant Hare Krishna, read our books, and you will always be in Krishna consciousness. Some practical for preparing for our death, because death is like it's in Ashur is death. Death will come. We don't know when it will come, but it will come. And Prabhupada says that the way to so the death is basically our examination. So if we are able to think of Krishna at the time of death, then that is the best, that is our perfection. And the way that we can prepare for death is by constantly, if we don't practice in our life to think about Krishna every single day and and constantly in our lives, at the time of death, it will be very difficult to remember Krishna. And Prabhupada says, one who is constantly engaged in devotional service can very easily remember Krishna at the time of death. Prabhupada says, there is a conversation that if you practice remembering Krishna now, then it will be possible at the time of death. Otherwise, it is not possible. You should practice chanting and remembering Krishna always, so that at the time of death, you can think of Krishna and thus achieve the highest perfection. So the Prabhupada talks about the holy name. The holy name of Krishna is so powerful that by chanting even once, one can attain liberation. What to speak of those who chant constantly? Prabhupada says about reading. By reading Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, one can always remember Krishna, and thus the fear of death is mitigated. And then in terms of engaging our bodies, Prabhupada says that engage in devotional service and your life will be successful. This will help you remember Krishna at the time of death. Prabhupada says devotional service ensures that our mind is fixed on Krishna, which is crucial at the time of death. So these were some of the quotes that I wanted to share, and some of the things that I wanted to share. Thank you so much for giving this opportunity. I went a little bit over, but I apologize, and please forgive me of all my mistakes. And if anybody has anything, please feel free to comment or make corrections. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mataji. It's a wonderful class with practical application. Thank you. Hare Krishna.